Good afternoon. I was supposed to say good morning to you, but thank you, Felicia, for covering my ass on that one. So good afternoon, and some of you I know and many of you I don't. So allow me to introduce myself. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Erin Brockovich, not Julia Roberts. That's my joke. It amazes me after the film came out how many people were confused by that. I mean, one day I'm walking down a street and someone comes up and says, "Oh my gosh, I loved your film and I use your Thigh Master all the time." I'll be in a grocery store and they'll see my ID and they'll go, "You're Erin Brockovich, that's the name of a film." I go, "Well, I'm the real one." They're like, "No, there isn't a real person, it's just a film." I could share stories with you forever about that. Being in the ladies' restroom, you know, brushing my hair or doing something and exchanging glances, and someone's like, "Didn't anyone ever tell you you look like Erin Brockovich?" I just laugh. I go, "No, but I've been told I look like Julia Roberts." And then she just laughs. So anyway, it's been a really bizarre and strange situation, but it's really a pleasure for me to be here today. And most of you probably know me from the film Erin Brockovich and the chromium-6 contamination out in Hinckley, California. You know, it's very difficult for me to, I go to events and I don't want to just talk science or those kind of things with you. Sometimes I get lost in that. I'd really rather share with you today my perspective of what goes on in communities and what we as people can do about it. We're always going to have the fight of science, but for me, a lot of common sense came into play when I began my work out in Hinckley, California in 1991. I was born and raised in Lawrence, Kansas, and can you hear me okay? Yes? Oh shit, I don't have to re-say everything, do I? Okay, let me start from the beginning. No, don't. Y'all heard me though, right? Okay. So I began my work out in Hinckley, California in 1991. And I didn't know it at the time, but my fascination with what was going on was something that was deep inside of me. And it was the way I was raised. And it came from my parents. And it came from living in Kansas. And it came from being taught that the greatest gifts we have isn't how much money you have in the bank. It's your water. It's your land. It's the air you breathe. It's your health, and it's your family. My father is an engineer. He actually worked for many years for Texaco. He used to sing me songs when I was a child about water and how important water was. My father, before he passed away, promised me in my lifetime that water would become a commodity, and I believe he's going to be right. My mom was a journalist, so I have a real Snoopy side from her. She's also a sociology major, and she had great appreciation for people. So all of those things, unbeknownst to me, started to work for me when I began my work out in Hinckley, California. Everyone told me I couldn't do what I was doing. I wasn't a doctor. I wasn't a scientist. I wasn't a politician. I didn't study mass torts. But I don't think you have to be anything other than a compassionate, caring individual with integrity and respect and appreciation for what we have. And any one of us, when we realize the power of those qualities, we can get involved. We can get involved in anything. I was out in Hinckley, and the first thing that I noticed was, frankly, the water was green. I was like Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz and Toto, we're not in Kansas anymore, because I had never seen green water. Nobody believed me, but we all now know hexavalent chromium in water is green. The higher the concentration, it turns dark. I've seen it at 24 parts per million, and it's deep purple. I saw animals and fish with two heads. Now, I didn't need to be a scientist to say, okay, I do not think green water and two-headed fish are the standard. Something has to be wrong. I used a lot of my observations. The trees were dying. Wildlife was missing. The water was a funny color. Cows shouldn't be covered in tumors. And I thought, what is going on out here? I began to get to know the people, and I listened to the stories and the illnesses that they were experiencing. And none of it made any sense to me. They lived out in the middle of nowhere. This was supposed to be a pristine, safe environment. So it dawned on me that there had to be something in common that was affecting the wildlife, that was affecting the trees, that was affecting the people. And the irony in all of this was water. Water, the single most necessary element to sustain life, was now killing everything. It was the water. And that's where I began. That's where I began my search out at the famous water board, Lahawton, and I started finding documents. And that's where I began to really become frustrated. And another lesson I learned from my father, and that was about honesty. So many of our problems begin with a teeny little seed of deception. It can be for many reasons, but I'm telling you, that's where the problem starts. When I got out to the water board, there was lots of documents. How they've been processed, I'm not sure. But down at the bottom was a very obscure document that said there was a hexavalent chromium problem and that a plume boundary had already been established 1 mile to the north. So that's how my work began in Hinckley. And it wasn't something really scientific. It was really just a person using their good old common sense, which I think we devalue now, and we can't. Everything began to make sense to me. I mean, just think about it. If there was a headline and all of our municipalities were contaminated with arsenic, are you really going to call a scientist and question, is it 5 parts per billion or 7 parts per billion? Or is there something about it that just says, I'm not going to drink the water? And this happens a lot of times in communities, and oftentimes they don't know. And I want to share with you that they do look to the agencies. They will look to the water purveyor because they believe and they want to trust that you're on top of your game and that you too have the same values they do, and respectfully monitor the water to assure that you are delivering them safe water. So that's kind of how I got involved in the Hinckley case. And it was my mom and my dad who were influencing me. I didn't know it, but it was respect and integrity, honesty, honor, all of it came together that helped me get where I am today. It was a really long haul, and it wasn't very easy. And I have clearly learned along the way it's going to continue to be a long haul, and it isn't easy. But that's something that I want you to know that I talk to people at a global level about, and that's not giving up. You know, I grew up again. When the going gets tough, the tough get going. You know, when you face a problem, there's a solution to it. There's a way to fix it. We can't hide it, but we can address it. And I do that in my life. And every day it reminds me of my mom, who taught me about stick-to-itiveness. And I grew up hearing the word, I'm a dyslexic, school was not my favorite place to be. And I'd come home feeling bad, and my mom would always say, you have to have some stick-to-itiveness, Erin. And I'm thinking, I really don't know what this word means, and it was really aggravating me. So I said, you've made it up, and go away. So she came back, and she had the Webster's Dictionary, and I was shocked to find out it was a real word. Stick-to-itiveness, noun, propensity to follow through in a determined manner, dogged persistence born of obligation and stubbornness. And I use this word every single day. And you're not born with stick-to-itiveness. You have to realize that you can't give up when the going gets tough, when you deal with an issue. And it could be a number of issues. Every one of us in this room face it. Today we're going to talk about water issues. You can't give up when the problem is presented. And I want every one of us to be dogged and persistent and have that stick-to-itiveness and stay with it until you find a way to fix the problem. find a way for a solution and a resolution. And so I just want to share with you in my line of work, and again, how I got where I was, because I'm telling you, when I read that definition, I was like, oh, that is so my middle name. I can be stubborn, I am dogged, I am persistent, and I will stay with it. And that's what we all have to do. Stick-to-itiveness. Next time you're in a dilemma, think of it. So here it is. I can't believe it. 13 years since the film came out and 22 years since I began my work out in Hinckley, California. And most people wonder what I'm doing today. A lot of the same thing, only it's a whole lot worse. I guess I was naive when I started out in Hinckley, California in 1991, thinking this was a one-off situation. Boy, was I wrong. Hinckley is not just Hinckley's problem. Hinckley does not just exist in Hinckley's backyard. It exists in every one of our backyards. We cannot think that we live in a bubble and what's happening somewhere else is not going to happen to you. It may already be happening to you. So Hinckley was not a one-off situation, and I continue to do the same thing I do, only at a global level. I get tens of thousands of emails monthly from 126 different countries and territories, and I can see that the problem has really become a problem. I'm very, very visual. And so what I decided to do one day, as people come to me with information, I'm going to show you a map, and Bob's going to bring it up for me. Most of you know Bob Bocock, don't you? Yes?
You can walk over there. Here.
So what I decided to do, you can leave it right there for now, is I'm creating an entire map. This map started with Google, and we've now pulled it off Z-Maps and off of them onto our own platform. So it's under construction, even though it's up on my website. But because I get so much information, you know, one person will contact me and say, we have a groundwater pollution here. We're a known Superfund site, and now I don't understand, but I think it's odd 12 kids have leukemia. So noted. And then a few days later, I get another email from the same community, just a different person. And then a couple of days later, I'll get 3 or 4. And that's my flag to go, okay, wait a minute, what's going on? So I decided to start mapping it. This is, and when you get into the map, when it's completely finished, you're going to be able to zoom in and out. We're creating a platform where for each location the community can go in. They can upload photos of their two-headed trout if they want. They can communicate with other communities. This is becoming a health map and a way to track people's movements and problems. So what we did, this is just kind of a heat sensor that's showing you where some of the hot spots are. But I became very intrigued early on about our Superfund situation and how many sites, because we go out to them, that have never been cleaned up. I think there's some 30,000. I'm like, oh my God. So we decided to plot first Superfund sites and their locations. So this is, we went through Superfund and we started to plot where all of their locations are. And I needed to know that because I kind of knew it was going back in my head. So I've had enough people reporting to me now, which I'm going to show you in a pin dot. And there you have it. Now what I think is very interesting is 95% of this is groundwater contamination. What I find very interesting is it's almost an identical map to the Superfund site. So that's telling me we're not getting back to these locations and A, checking on the health and welfare of a community, or B, addressing the actual water problem. And that's something that we have to do. We have to address the actual problem. And this is very concerning to me because the numbers keep growing. Every day now, and this map will show it as soon as we're completely built out, every time somebody contacts me from a location, and it will be global, that has a groundwater issue or an air contamination or a community that they feel has too many health problems, it will go on live. So every day you're going to know when somebody reports. We're backlogged now by almost 2,000 sites. So how far are we going to go before we don't see the United States of America and wonder what's going on out there? You know, I'm fascinated in this day of technology, whether we have Twitter and we have Facebook and we have Google and we have more ways to be connected, that this is going on. Either A, we're not communicating that well, or B, we're not listening. And I think that is part of the problem. It's really difficult to believe when communities come to you and they are reporting this situation and you can't see it, therefore we think it isn't real. But I am desperately trying to send the message, this is real. This isn't my story. This is everybody's story. And we've got to begin to find ways to work together, government, business, and people, to begin to find solutions to this. So the map has been very, very startling to me. And one thing that we have found regarding public health and welfare that's been interesting with this map is we don't track people's movements. People can grow up on a Superfund site up here in Minnesota and be there for 15 years and then move away. And 7 years later, down in Florida where they live, they come down with cancer and it gets reported to the state of Florida. So we were involved in a situation in Minnesota, old Superfund site, TCE. Everybody's on groundwater. And it hasn't been cleaned up. So we worked together with the community and we got and encouraged them to create their own Facebook. Each one of these communities has their own Facebook. They are a cornucopia of information. So when you go to each dot, you'll be able to pull down on it. You'll be able to see Facebook. You'll be able to see what they're talking about. You'll be able to see them networking and finding each other. So in this situation in Minnesota, they created a Facebook page and it blew up overnight to thousands. What I found astonishing is 800 people who had been scattered throughout the U.S. that grew up there had cancer. That number did not get reported to state statistics. And I worry that we're missing clusters because we're missing data. And we are trying to find those missing data points here where they have a streamline and a location to go and talk and communicate. And oftentimes, we don't know what's going on. I'm very heavily involved in a bad women's product right now. And the company is protected by preemption. And I'm just thinking, I just don't understand how all of this is going on. When it dawned on me that the consumer did not know what this very dangerous law was. They didn't know. But as soon as they did know, they would do something about it. That process has started. But up here on the Hill, or government, or the powers to be, whoever they are, they don't realize when something is passed, they think it's just one affected. No, it's all of us affected. When I took this map up to Congress and I presented it to the environmental group up there, and even Senator Boxer was there. At the time, I only had 350 dots on it. And she was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. This is going on out there? And these people are reporting to you? Why would we not know? And I'm like, because somebody's not listening. Because these people are desperate to reach out to someone, but their voices go unheard. So I'm very anxious. This has become, honestly, an obsession for me. And I hope a tool for all of us to be able to get into so we can see where people have moved. Maybe we can begin to identify clusters. We can find groundwater contaminations that haven't been cleaned. We can get busy cleaning them up. Agencies can begin to network with each other and find ways to clean it up. Because somehow all of this is going to find you and I somewhere. I just know it is. So it's a growing problem, and you don't realize how big it is until you see something like this. So today, this is what I continue to do, is obviously environmental issues. It's my passion, and I'm going to be spending a great deal more of time developing the map so we have a central location where we and even doctors can begin to go. And if they have a groundwater contamination with a certain chemical and a certain disease, to see if there's others throughout or scattered throughout the U.S., because oftentimes there are. And then if we would just address the problem, if we'll just face the problem, we can find ways to better science and find better ways to help people who are sick, and better ways for agencies to take care of their water supply and their communities as well. So I'm going to spend a big chunk of my time doing this. A lot of my work is about creating change and where change begins. And before I go any further, and because we've talked about the map, and I know all of you, most of you here, are in the water industry. We have, for the first time, and I'm really proud of the state of California, because they were the first ones to step up after a very long battle. But we never gave up for hexavalent chromium in drinking water. And the public health goal came in at 0.02 parts per billion. That, I'm proud of them. I'm proud of us. We're the first state to do that. Now we have on board, and something that's going to impact all of you, which is the MCL. That's up for a debate right now because the health department came in at 10 parts per billion. That was somewhat concerning to us. I mean, normally MCLs are set pretty close to the public health goal. Everybody has their input about what's going on economically and feasibly. And that is important. I get that. But we can't keep not doing the right thing for the sake of our groundwater and not stopping pollution and public health and safety. We've got to start addressing the problems up front. And it may cost a little more up front, but the savings in the end will be incredible. Just by way of example, in my line of work that I've done with Pacific Gas and Electric, the first lawsuit, $333 million. We settled a second lawsuit with them for the same pollution in another town in the San Joaquin Valley for $335 million. We're back out in Hinckley, California again, because somehow, somewhere, we go back to that seed of deception, got through those cracks. PG&E never cleaned up the plume. The plume has grown. They're out there having to buy more houses. There's going to be a third lawsuit. I would probably be fair to say it's going to hit in the same ballpark of where we've been, 300, 335. So let's do the math. We're at $1 billion. PG&E is looking at a 200-year cleanup, a $250 million cleanup, millions in defense costs. We're going to push $2 billion, all because somebody didn't do the right thing at the get-go. You would have saved a whole lot of money. You would have saved a lot of lives. You would have saved an environment, and you could have saved an entire watershed, something that's going to become a commodity. All because you didn't want to spend the extra little bit of money. And that is a very important message that I carry to you from all communities. They don't want agencies and companies to go away. How do you think they work? They work for you. That's how they pay their mortgage. That's how they send their kid to college. That's how they get health insurance. It's part of the system. And business has got to be respectful. And when something happens, and communities understand that, the downfall out in Hinckley was you hit it. I would have hit the ground telling the people the truth. Because when they know the truth, they're not helpless, they're not vulnerable, they're not defenseless. They will work with you. So while we get into the argument, it's going to cost too much, this is a problem, I just don't think we can sacrifice that anymore. And when you do what's right, and you spend the extra cost up front, and you are preventative, because none of this that you saw on the map may ever hit you. If it doesn't, God bless you. But if it does, you were prepared, and you were ready. You know, I go up to Harvard, and I would love to do a sabbatical up there, and I got the Julius V. Richmond Award, and I really listened to what it is they said could be the game changer. And that's going to be prevention. That's going to be an extra buck up front, so we don't have to deal with what we're dealing with today. This is the fallout of us not doing the right thing out the chute. And that's what I want us to start doing. And I want companies to understand, we don't want you to go away. Nobody in this room does. I don't. We all love our cars. We all like to go on vacation. We all want to send our kids to college. But they have to understand we need each other. And this gap and this lack of communication between companies and people has got to be bridged. You know, I spend endless time going around the United States, and my heart breaks when I deal with communities. Another hexavalent chromium contamination. Oh my gosh, hexavalent chromium contamination in Australia, throughout the United States, Ireland, a heinous contamination in Greece, Brazil, Italy. It's a world problem. Industry used it heavily. It's going to pop its head up everywhere. And I don't want us getting hung up in this argument and for the sake of water that people's lives are destroyed because somebody got greedy or somebody got afraid or somebody was not had the courage, because that's what leadership takes, to step out on a limb and say the buck is going to stop here. But chromium-6 is a problem. We need to get that MCL down to a closer level to the public health goal and think of our health and welfare first. So if you're aware of it and you're afraid of it or you're worried about a little extra cost, if you look at this, I really think in the long run it will be more effective if we begin to do business a different way. And how that change begins is with you as an individual, collectively in this room, communities coming together, and I believe that we are on the cusp of that change. And what I was saying when my heart broke out in these communities is because I do hear, well, the EPA is coming, and we're going to be okay. There is somewhat of a false illusion that the federal umbrella is going to save you. And I tell the communities, see, Superman's not coming. We are going to have to begin to start saving ourselves. You know, we try to build from the top down. And what we need to do is from the bottom go up. And that begins with communities. That begins with local agencies. That begins with local politicians. And I see it happening all over. It's happening in Carson right now with the big shell contamination and the soil vapor plume under people's houses, and it's posted. Little children can't go out in their own backyard and play. This is 2013. I feel like we're somewhere antiquated. And this community rallied together. And they, you know what they did? They went to their local city council. Have you ever been to a city council meeting? I have. Bloody Christ, there's nobody in there. I'm sorry if there's a city council person in this room. But y'all sitting in there talking to yourselves. So we get the community to realize they have a say. And they can work with those local politicians. It's hilarious when you're at one of those meetings and you're in there and all of a sudden 3,000 people walk in. I mean, the city council members are like, what the fuck? I mean, what's going on? But in Carson, it's been fabulous because the city council took their back. The mayor got involved, and the mayor took their back. And now the mayor with agencies is saying, we're going to take their back. No more delays. Let's fix this. That's how change will begin. With each of you as an individual, with your community, with your local agencies. Because I showed you that Superfund site map. I don't know how anybody's ever going to get out there and clean it all up. The only way it can happen is at a local level, state by state, community by community, county by county, neighborhood by neighborhood. That's how change will begin. And I think it always gives me hope and inspiration when I'm out talking and to see all of you, because you get to do that. And it's empowering that we as leaders, and see, here's what I think happens. You are a leader. And sometimes we forget we're leaders. Sometimes we think in order to be a leader, you have to do or be what? Born that way? Or elected as president? Effective leadership is each one of you. And we do it every day. We just don't think about it, or we forget. Mothers lead their children every day, don't they? Even in nature, a little duckling leads the way, and the little teeny babies follow their mommy. Lead their companies. Sports figures are led by their coaches. All of us every day lead. And the leadership qualities that we need and communities are looking for from politicians, from their elected officials, to water purveyors, to city council members, is what's important to every single one of us. Respect, honesty, openness, willingness, strength, courage, stick-to-itiveness, passion, and compassion. These are all qualities of a leader. Those aren't qualities of a weak person. It takes a lot to come forward and to push to be heard. It takes a lot to come forward and push for change. And it is time. It is here. Change must happen. This isn't what will destroy us. We will destroy us if we continue to think that this is okay. If we continue to bury our head in the sand, and if we continue to look the other way. I'm not sure where it is we have forgotten, whether you are Exxon, whether you are a water purveyor, whether you are an individual at your own home. Everything that we do, everything that makes us the global world we are, and everything that sustains us comes from this environment. That's where we get our oil. That's where we get our gas. That's where we get our water. We don't have our water. Game over. Have you had seen the headlines over in Iran right now? There's a big thing that just came out. You know what they need? Water. Wells in California. Don't want to believe it? They're going dry. Wells in Oklahoma are going dry. We do. You can call climate change whatever you want. But something's changed. There's droughts. This is a recycled water system. It's just, if we don't change, and if we don't take care of it, and we don't start cleaning these chemicals so we can reuse that water, we are in trouble. And this isn't a scare tactic, because I'm empowered by all of us. We have the technology. We have the corporations. Obviously, the money exists somewhere. We need to reprioritize what it is that's important to us. And it's the same message for everybody. We need water. We need clean water. We need people with integrity and positive leaders that have the courage to address things like this. So my whole message today wouldn't just be about chromium-6. My whole message today is about every one of us. I've spent, from the bottom of my heart, 20 years trying to deflect off of me Erin Brockovich. Because for me, it's nothing special. For me, what's special is I tried to be a human being. And for me, what matters is every one of you is already an Erin Brockovich. Every one of you has the ability to make and affect change by just putting yourself out there, not burying your head in the sand, and having the courage and taking the back of your community, taking the back of your coworker, your family, all of us collectively, to begin to address a very, very, I think, dangerous situation. And it will begin with you. It will begin with setting maximum contaminant limits in water that are protective of public health and safety. I am worried, and if anybody wants to weigh in, that the Department of Health Services has violated a water code They broke the law because you're too far from that public health goal, which is where you need to stay. So if it comes about and there is a little more cost to you, that change is good. That little extra cost is good. You will be tenfold rewarded. You will still be working. You will still, if we clean it up, have safer water. You'll have happier communities. We'll have a healthier society. Because we have to stop this. It's all about you, or it's all about you, or it's my way or the highway. This has got to be a win-win for every one of us. It has to be a win-win for every one of us. Individually, politically, governments, agencies, business. So that's kind of just a little bit of what I wanted to share with you today and where it is that I think we need to head in the future. Whatever it is we've done well. But in 2013, this doesn't work anymore. It doesn't. You know, when I go out to Missouri and there's a mine out there, Doe Run, I'm happy to name names, and they just throw their lead check piles throughout the town. And little children think they're dirt mountains. So they play them all day long. They're neurologically damaged. That is the future of America. This is craziness. 2013 is time for change. And how that change begins is with every one of you in this room today. So don't be afraid to step up to the plate. Don't be afraid to work with your community, and I encourage communities to come to all of you. Together, I really do believe, and it's not some cliche, because I see it happening and I see change happening. Together, I think that we can address these problems. And remember the qualities of leadership, because every one of you has it. And that's respect for another, integrity for yourself, integrity for your environment, integrity for your community, being honest. You know, everyone always worries, and I learned a lesson the hard way with my father, because I told a lie and I got grounded for an entire school semester, and it's a whole other different story. But my dad taught me, and it stuck with me. You always tell the truth. You may be in trouble, but it's going to be a lot less painful than if you lied. And so for all of us as leaders, to be honest, we all make mistakes. We all have problems. We all have issues. Just put it out here. Just say it, see it, and do it. And the change will come from each one of you to believe. You don't have to be the scientist. You don't have to have a PhD. You don't have to be president of this country to be a human being, to give a damn, and to see what's going on around you and say something, and you be that change. And it's a domino effect. And when you are, the rest of us will follow. So I appreciate all the work that you have done. I didn't want to just sit here today and talk about any one specific thing. I hope that I've given you some fuel for your thoughts, that you go away today and continue to do a good job. Don't be afraid to give some input into helping us set MCLs and setting standards and rules and regulations that will make a change in everybody's life. So, as I said earlier, I don't want to stand up here, and it makes me uncomfortable being Erin Brockovich, because I am you, and you are me, and we are people, and we all have the same common goal, and I think that we can do it. So I'm here to cheer you on, and I thank you and applaud you for all the great work and efforts that you have made in your own community. So thank you. I'll shut up.